Welcome back to SwitchStars, my name's Luke, and the past week has seen the likes of Midnight Works and their alter ego VG Games shouting out a bunch of new titles onto the Switch eShop, with today's review being for the latest masterpiece, Deep Space Action Fire Sci-Fi Game 2023 Shooter Strike Simulator Alien Death Ultimate Games, which is undoubtedly the most creative title yet for one of their scams. And I've warned you off plenty of these ones in the past, but in case you missed them, be sure to check out the links down in the description box below. I guess the question is though, is this one any different? Well, hit that like button, subscribe for more Nintendo Switch reviews and content, and let's find out. So it's plain to see that by the name alone, this one is hoping to steal your attention with its Dead Space vibes, especially considering the Dead Space remaster was recently released, and it just goes to show that if nothing else, the marketing team over at Midnight Works have at least a couple of brain cells to rub together. Hitting the main menu though, we get our Isaac Clarke wannabe standing there in a generic looking armoured spacesuit, which in no way holds a candle to Isaac's legendary luminescent visor, but in addition to getting a fully functional options menu, for once we actually have a Midnight Works game which can actually be played whilst docked, though let's not start sucking the dicks too soon as we've yet to get into the gameplay. The story of this one though is about as mediocre and uninspiring as they come. We get to play as an unnamed spacefarer who, after waking to find the rest of the crew still in stasis and the ship's life support and power grid offline, must risk it all to save his fellow astronauts, save the ship and eradicate the alien presence which appears to have caused the calamity. That though is about as deep as the story gets with this one. We get a couple of lines of dialogue delivered in the absolute slowest way possible, letter by letter in 5-word sentences. One of them is a garbled mess, one has a typo telling us to unlock all the doors manually and see what happened with this stanchion. Yeah, we're on a space stanchion, not station, didn't you know? And the final bit of dialogue continues playing long after the dude saying it fucks off on us. But all of them are a pain to sit through and offer nothing to expand on the storyline. Now when it comes to the gameplay, we wake up from our hibernation and climb out of our coffin to some epic lens flare, and the developer has used this particular visual effect all over the shop, and it practically detaches your fucking retinas if you happen to look at a console too closely. Regardless though, this first section of the game has us wandering about corridors, all of which look near identical and are extremely easy to lose your bearings in, and trial and error is the only way I actually made my way through them. None of the doors have any kind of indication as to whether or not they're locked, so I ended up trying every single one of them, and to make matters worse, there's no map in the game. But thankfully this one's extremely linear, so you will eventually find where you're supposed to be going. Throughout this uneventful escapade though, I had to download some data from some consoles, restart some live support machines, turn the power back on and turn on some other machines which all looked identical to the previous two. I found a weapon but no ammo, and after wandering around for about 20 minutes, the ship gave a shudder and I was told to leave the danger zone immediately. This took me to the game's second area, which I'll dub the combat area, and this is where all the monsters are hiding which supposedly caused this mess, including the Queen. The monsters themselves come in 3 varieties though. Firstly, these little grub creatures, secondly, multi-eyed dog-like creatures, and finally a bunch of Murloc looking monsters straight out of World of Warcraft. But this area essentially had me working my way in a circle and fighting waves of enemies whilst being locked into enclosed rooms full of boxes. My weapons consisted of a blaster pistol which I'd only just gotten ammo for, and a more powerful assault rifle which I obtained in the very first room of the area and obviously used throughout the entirety of these encounters. But let me tell you now, the encounters themselves are absolute dog shit. Enemies spawn at random, appearing out of nowhere in dark corners and swarming you, and you can't proceed until you've killed them all off. Between each area you're given a health pack to recover some life, but the game saves after every room, and if you exit one with low health like I did before going into the final area, You've got 50 health to play with, and your weapon is practically useless, with the dog enemies taking an entire clip to kill. Now, I eventually got so pissed off that I resorted to climbing on boxes in the hopes of staying out of the reach of them, and this kind of worked to some extent, but despite me being way up above them, they still managed to somehow hit me and kill me over and over. Finally, after about 20 minutes of trying, I learned that the best strategy was to jump over the top of them, as they take a lifetime to actually turn around, and after clearing out the last of them, I then proceeded to head on down to kill the Queen, a big bulging prolapsed arsehole looking thing who shot out more of the grub things at me but put up very little fight, and I snagged the red orb or keycard to then move to the final area of the game. Now, here I found more nondescript corridors to get lost in, but thankfully it was a much smaller area, and I eventually encountered this spaceman who got halfway through telling me that the ship needed 2 people to fly it before sprinting off and disappearing into a nearby room. I was then left to restart the engines, which for some reason were done via a console in another nearby room, but after doing so and heading for the exit, a huge bunch of monsters came at me, and whilst backing away from them, the game abruptly ended, kicking me back to the title screen. And it was there that I was given the option to play, which then started the whole game all over again from the beginning. Now, looking back at the footage, I was actually able to pause a message which appeared on screen for about a frame, and this is what it said. First chapter ended, to be continued. What the absolute fuck is that? The eShop description even gives an entire synopsis of the story, and the final line of it says you can find out the end of this tense story only by trying it. But clearly that is a complete load of bollocks, and this isn't even the entire game. Honestly, I think Midnight Works may have outdone themselves this time. The game itself isn't the worst thing I've played. Sure, it's a bag of dicks, but at least it functions. But once again, the eShop description spouts a load of bullshit, talking about nodes to unlock special doors and upgrade your weapons and suit with, when there's no upgrade system whatsoever in the game, and in the end you can't actually finish it anyway. So what is the actual point? I suppose that all I really have left to say about this one though is stay away from it. It's another shitty scam, and I feel sorry for anyone who was bought it thinking they were going to get a Dead Space experience, because that it most certainly is not. With that said though, hopefully you actually watch this review before making a purchase, and as I've said, check out my other scam videos in my Asset Flips playlist, as every single one of Midnight Works games and the other personas, Instamarketing and Game and VG games, is just as bollocksy as this one. Do drop a like though if this one helped you out, subscribe for more Switch reviews and content, and until next time, thanks once again for watching, take care of yourselves, and game on.